Feels like I've been here for years. For him it's joy, for me it's tears. कदी नहीं सोचिया सी इस दुनिया विच आवांगी, इस दुनिया विच आके ऐना फस जावांगी.
When we began this program, it was because of the extraordinary problem between Israel and Palestinians. But what we wanted to do was not only to focus on that, but to focus on the parallel situations in other parts of the world. And you have done that so brilliantly, and we are grateful for it, because what we need to do is focus across the globe. And this has been a perfect example of what the union of solidarity is needed. It has to be a collaborative effort to overcome it.
And I think it's a wonderful thing that that you have to insist on, because it's a way of touching people's heart and making think about many of the realities that are happening in countries that could be so far for us, in where we don't even have a slightest idea how much people is suffering and how many unfairness it could be that comes from governments, from the ideologies, or just by the greed of men and that are in power. So, I really am very happy to have had the opportunity to join these discussions about Venezuela, especially, and I hope that you can be a channel of communication and of awareness of wherever there is a space to let people know that you have to care and you have to learn from the lessons of the tragedies of other countries.
Reaching out to different communities and finding out really what's happening to people, because otherwise we won't know. And the theatre is a great way of coming to know and coming to share. So I just commend what you're doing, and I think it's going to get richer and richer as the project continues. So I'm very, very grateful to you.
I feel so much more understanding of people's circumstances than reading the news, whatever, and even listening to this explanation of the situation in Venezuela. The connections are so much clearer for me by seeing this very human theatrical presentation. I just want to say, as an individual, this has really been profoundly informative on a human level for me. All the information and the important information that we're hearing, for whatever reason, is more accessible for me.
The work the art author presents us is also a way to represent how we are still fighting and how we are stand to say we are not quitting. And we are still here, we're fighting an authoritarianism.
I want to commend again, Melody, you and Iman for this great initiative. Hopefully it will not be the end.
One thing that I hope and will try to activate is that each of us who is now familiar with each other, that we help to extend the conversation across the globe to many other countries who share similar problems, so that the conversation will enhance our ability to cope with them. And we are there for you as a committee and hope you will stay committed to it as we are to you.
I hope that we can actually use these conversations to reach much wider audiences and to be able to percolate, because there is all-pervasive fear, and artists, at least in India, have self-censored to a huge extent. And as I said in the beginning, to find 12 people to go into these 4 Sundays was a huge and difficult task.
True. I mean, all totalitarian or fascist societies eventually want a system of self-censorship and self-correction. They want compliance, and they want compliance to be voluntary.
More and more, those in power are trying to segregate us with stigmas of religion and of origin and of color and of everything else. And we, the collective we of artists, what we are discovering is that we are so much closer and closer, and we share so many things, and we care for so many things alike, that it makes us a community of our own in the face of all the oppression that the world is living. And I'm so happy that we are doing such a pilot project that is giving me and giving us so much to reflect on. So really, thank you all for being in this unity.
One of my points that I want to keep raising here, because I think that the U.S. is equally in danger, and that the people who live here aren't paying enough attention. That we saw it under Trump, but it's in fact a thing that's been going on for more than 10 years here. It is by design in terms of the takeover of the courts, the corporatist power. So even the supposed liberals here have not stood up for real liberal principles. And I think that we are in danger. And the stuff that we're seeing in South America and other places around the world, there are many, many regions here in the US that we're seeing all of that happen now. And that it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah, I did go to a protest here in London in support of Iraq, which was very nice. But there were conversations that were very similar to the conversations we were having in Lebanon. So it was a bit, it felt like there was very similar, similar discourse there. It's also about sectarianism, foreign intervention. The speciality of both the Iraqi and Lebanese revolution is that we're not just against a dictator or an oligarchy, we're against so many other players that, and what's happening in Lebanon now shows that these players are going to decide what's going to happen in Lebanon, not us, the revolution. And the prime minister, who was ousted last year, exactly in October, has now come back. It's so unfair. I can't, it's injustice, unfair. And you feel like, what can I do? And in Lebanon, with the explosion and coronavirus and the financial crisis, people really feel, whereas there was hope in October 2019, there's complete lack of hope in 2020.
Melody have mentioned your preoccupation about the US. Well, see what happened to us. We were a sound democracy. We never thought it was going to happen. We thought bad things only happened to other countries, and look at the mess that we are at this stage of life.
There's no sign of the doctor. Yeah, they give you an appointment for 5:30 in the morning, and he shows up whenever he feels like it, with the excuse that there's no gas. He could have come by bicycle.
You really think that fat ass is gonna get on a bicycle? Since they don't fill his tank up for free, he prefers to wait for the National Guard to give him a ride. They are the only ones who have gas.
That's right.
And diesel, and propane, and even wood. They control everything. Where we go, how we get there, what we eat, and how we cook it.
Don't complain, ladies. Don't complain. Because thanks to the government, you have your little bag of food every month, and I have this little job. We provide you supreme happiness. We provide you food. Don't complain. Full tummy makes your heart happy.
You mean your heart? Because mine is sadder than a chained up dog. That happiness is just for a few, and bitterness for almost everyone else.
In Venezuela, there's a vice ministry for supreme happiness. It's not a joke, it's true. Government believes that the happiness of people can be declared. That particular part of the country where this story evolves is of extraordinary beauty, but it's very poor. People have hardly work, and to survive, the majority lived with a few days a month due to a bag of food government that's provided is a mean to achieve loyalty.
Really look at the commonalities between Palestine. We had one session on Lebanon, Venezuela, and India, and that the commonalities are obvious and a little bit overwhelming, I think, and that we can see the march of authoritarianism around the world.
It is the bell that we want to ring at the end of the day, and to say that if we don't stop, if we don't do anything to stop what is happening in our countries, then it's going really to the whole globe is going to be affected, and it's like a fire that is moving from one place to another. It's going to be burning everything and everybody.
Burn it down. Don't bother. We have orders about the women. Doesn't matter. A few more, a few less. I'm too exhausted anyway. Here. Pour some on this side. Ready? You. Go that side. You. There. Quick. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
Looking at the impact of the theater pieces, how we use theater, how we use this work that we're all doing, wherever we are, to spur the larger global community to get involved somehow.
I think that we have to be able to share this information beyond the audiences that you get here. And I think that's our obligation to do that, is to extend the audience for these extraordinary stories.
We can take these pieces that have all been powerful and illuminating and really do them justice so that we can get the wider world to pay attention.
I wanted to share the fact that the first short piece was so touching to me, and it's completely resonates with what we are living as well. And so it could have been in Palestine.
Are you afraid?
No.
Don't lie to me. Tell me the truth.
That's the truth, no. My conscience is clear.
despite the time that you have spent in here.
If you have me here because of the protests?
Because of inquiries.
It's been 2 years. 2 years, sir. You guys got confused. This is a confusion. A big mistake, you know. You, sir, you're confused. You know
No. The only one that is confused here is you, Rufito. We know that you entered that house and you robbed the motorcycle. What do you think? That you were going to get out unpunished? That there is no one in this country that abide by the law? Well, you are wrong, Rufito. You are wrong. Now you are afraid, right?
No.
Address?
Highway Community. House number 22. La Fria, San Cristobal, state of Táchira.
What a coincidence. I live just 4 houses away from where you live.
So then you know me. You know me, and you know that 3 years ago, Apolitáchira shot me directly in the face with a pellet rifle. You know that I cannot see, huh? I will never be able to see again. I remain blind. How could I have stolen that motorcycle? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? The ones that are blind are you.
I would love to do a play like this in Ramallah, because this is one of the things that I want to think all together about. It's important to really share these plays that we are presenting to the world, and that we could take from each other's plays and present them, because this is when our audience would start to realize and understand what's going on in other countries, and vice versa.
I'm ever the idealist that we can create something that can reach a real global audience, not necessarily just theater artists or artists in general. Some of the things we've talked about in past sessions have been, what are some practical steps that if we were to reach out to the world and say, do this thing, that we can all be involved in making change. And we've had a long list from publishing the work, from working with universities to really encourage the younger generation of artists.
What if we go to all the schools of design and the schools of filmmaking where they do teach filmmaking, and the theater people, schools of theater, so young people, and say, if we were to give you an opportunity to create a 5-minute piece on something that you care passionately about, something to do with issues of exploitation and injustice, and then we will take the 5 best ones and give them a prize, or we'll publish them, or we'll put them on YouTube, or whatever, to get young people inspired by this work and to say, yes, this is possible, and yes, it needs to be done, and yes, it can reach people.
Malika, what you just said about reaching out to universities or schools, and having some kind of incentive to ask young people to do it really fits in with the idea of even doing maybe a curriculum, or it could be a shortened one, not a full course, but something that could be offered to universities. I also think one of the things we want to do is look at some sources of funding, because we've done this, as always, on the backs of the artists themselves who have managed to create this work. New Perspectives is a tiny company. We have a big reach for a very small company, but we don't have a lot of cash. So thinking too about both ways to do it without a lot of money, but finding some resources, publishing the work. We've one idea has been doing sort of a rolling festival of the work, that we ask people to do these pieces or selections of these pieces, and so a sharing of the work in different ways. And it became clear that we couldn't just put the raw conversation out there in the world. And that has been brought home not just by Malika's experience with trying to get 12 artists to agree to do this, but in Venezuela, that at the last minute, one of the artists had to be anonymous, had to use a pseudonym because they had just arrested a bunch of artists there. So, you know, how do we get the work out, protect the safety of the artist, and if we can find ways to support artists around the world as well?
Personally, I feel the need for a network, a joining in, and you know, connection with other people around the country, around the world, who are in the same space and who are going through similar problems, and for us to get together, put our heads together, and see how we can forge the way ahead in these times.
I think that what Pinti said is absolutely right, which is the fact that I think one of the ways that the arts needs to survive and the artistic community needs to survive is actually to have a larger network across India, across the world, of support, and this is for people who care for each other, and make work happen. We as artists can go and express things and reach an audience about things that matter to us, and you know, can in a weird way be critical of the powers that be.
Palestinian Performing Arts Network is a good model for ways in which, in all of these areas that we're investigating, artists can come together and have support and do this work.
The impact of the Palestinian coalition is very strong. And I think it's a model for the kind of collaboration that should happen in all of the countries that we visit, where similar tragedies and challenges are happening.
In Palestine, the civil society depends mostly on international funding. And we've been doing all our work through the support of either European or American or international support. At the end of 2019, the European Union made a decision to add a condition in their agreements to the Palestinian civil society organizations, which is to consider a group of 7 or 8 Palestinian political parties as terrorists. We refused to accept these agreements, and we lost our major funders.
So what are they requesting is that we cannot work with this political party or that political party, or have children or families or whatever who are affiliated to this political party, or that with this funding come with dictations to do this piece and that piece, not based on our needs and priorities, not based on consulting with us in what we are really wanting to do, but based on a funder to whom we are working. We are not working for the Europeans. We are not working for the United States. We are not working for the Israelis. We work for our people, and to show their stories and their causes and their hopes and dreams and so on, and transmit it all over the world, and build these bridges that we are doing right now with people like you who are committing to the values that we share as human beings, to justice and the freedom and equality and the humanity and dignity and love. And that's why for us, all those who try to dictate us what we can do rather than consult with us and help us do what we really need to do is a challenging situation.
We all work for the benefit of our societies, and therefore we need to really cultivate that sort of working together in order to make the change, because the change can never be from one side only, can never be inside only, can never be outside only. It has to join forces.
There's a coalition of New York-based artists, not only in New York, but mostly New York-based artists. And we're trying to support the PPAN by reaching out to leaders in the various American theaters, any American theater we can make contact with, to urge them to support the PPAN in ways that we kind of have outlined. We're trying to engage. We're having some success. I think this is I was just texting back and forth with Moreno. I met in Bethlehem in 2009, I believe. And you know, it's been a long, slow process in trying to sway even our American theater makers' attention towards these issues. But I think the time is opening up. Things are opening up. So that's one of the things we're trying to do here. Of course, we've supported the work of the Freedom Theater in New York for many years. Again, step by step, it goes very slowly. Iman has been to New York with Ashtar Theater and with her Gaza monologues. So we're developing a network of interested and concerned folks.
One of the things we've talked about is putting pressure on Western funders to stop putting stupid conditions on the money they give to artists in the Middle East to do their work.
Don't be scared to do things related to Palestine or to organize events with Palestinian theaters, invite theaters, do tours for theaters, organize even events like this to talk about it, because it's very, very important. Because our resilience that you really like and you talk about, to be honest, after 25 years or 30 years of working in theater myself, it's getting weaker by the day.
I love Sand Mountain because it was a kind of, I like them all, but Sand Mountain is a really international play. I could take that play and direct it, and it would have an audience here.
A woman is making something with sand. The stage is empty of anything else. Blue sky dictates the atmosphere. It's early morning. What are you doing?
What do you see?
Sand.
Exactly.
You're making sand?
I'm building.
Building what?
I'm making a sand mountain.
With sand?
That's what I have.
For what?
It will look beautiful.
What will you do with it?
I'm not sure yet. Maybe sit on it and watch the sunset.
That's all? You're building a mountain to sit on it?
I don't know yet. Maybe I'll build a castle on top.
A castle? Are you planning to live in it?
Maybe. Maybe it will just look beautiful on top. Maybe it will not be big enough for me or too fragile to live in it.
Then make it big enough.
I'm not making it to live in it. I'm now making a sand mountain. I'll figure out later what I'll do with it.
I think it's a waste of time.
Waste? I'm enjoying what I'm doing. In fact, I was bored yesterday. Didn't know what to do with all the time and sand I have. So I decided to build a sand mountain.
Like this, out of the blue, you thought of building a sand mountain.
Yes, I once made a paper plane.
Did it fly?
No, I didn't make it to fly. I just made it because I had time and I had paper, plenty of it.
You can write on them instead, a novel perhaps.
I'm not a novelist.
What are you then?
I'm a maker. What are you?
I am an initiator.
What do you initiate?
Ideas.
What's your last idea?
Building a stone mountain.
Did you make it?
No, I just initiated.
Who will make it then?
You perhaps.
When I read it, it took me to a situation where I felt that that's the absurdity of our living. This is where we are. We are somehow on a sand mountain, politically speaking, and also socially speaking, and in terms of fragile beings. And while also our relationship with the world is, everybody is initiating ideas to us. Everybody is giving us thoughts and maybe propositions, but nothing on the ground. We are in this limbo. And this play is a limbo to me.
I just wish students and people coming into theatre would be able to see all this.
Dani, I'm sure if you did this play, they would flock to it. And you would have great conversations and they would all be moved. But what's the next step?
Depends on who your audience is. So if I were taking a play like Sand Mountain, I would make sure I had students there, people who are the future of theatre. that they would be able to see and understand and realize how we can use theatre for what you're talking about, Melody. You know, I think it really depends on who you're playing to. If you're just going into a major theatre with the normal theatre audience, then I think what you're saying is absolutely valid. But I think if you can get to people who reach a different kind of audience, I think then things may happen even more immediately.
So this idea of what Fanny has said about really thinking about audiences and how we can craft both the work and the messages and take away things from these conversations that can, and find different platforms to put it out there, because it is, if we can think of this as a grassroots effort in terms of the work we're looking at, but also grassroots around the world to put pressure on governments everywhere.
I think some of these stories need to be shared with our politicians, those people who represent us. I always say, take people to the West Bank, show them the way people have to live there, and that would open their eyes. When you attempt to travel from one site to the next against the walls and the barriers and the armed Israelis and PA, for that matter, when you see what it means to just to negotiate the everyday items in anybody's life, I think that the point is driven home. And of course, United States military support is the thing that's keeping this going. So the most effective thing we can do is to pressure our politicians.
Our theater work should be really related to politics. Make a play that could really go into political arenas, not only to the people, but also to political groups. They don't see theater that is political. This is what I believe that should be done, to reach them with a political play in their face somehow.
Ultimately, I think that if we have it and we do it well, then we get it to the politicians. So we put it on YouTube for a global audience, but that we have a two-pronged effort. One is raising global awareness, trying to activate citizens around the world, and the other is to really figure out what's the political push that can be made. I, for one, think we should all commit to never calling Israel a democracy. You know, it's always the answer by the U.S. government, oh, it's the only democracy in the Middle East. It's not a democracy. So we need to stop saying that, so that the American people think it's a democracy and therefore, you know, they don't have to do anything or whatever. But there's small things like that to much larger things.
I agree about, you know, we need to talk about everything, but talking straight politics, no one's going to listen. But the human stories, that really gets under people's skin.
I saw that people are craving for something that like speaks to them on a personal level, like day to day, because we're so much in the news and we're so much like on TV, just portrayed as a war zone and as a place with so many turmoil and like bombing and Gaza and all of this thing. And we forget the humans who live in these places.
You've just encapsulated what our goal is with this program, and that is to personalize it, to see that, to hear the stories and to understand it.
We talk about human issues in a human scale in front of the human audience that is also experiencing the what we are communicating on stage in a human scale. They could identify it, they could do catharsis, they could feel that they are not the only one feeling this thing, but they share.
That's what we're really trying to do, is get everyone to see everyone else as a human being. I know that's rather idealistic.
There are aspects of this that are not political, that are totally social. And it's to those that we are addressing ourselves. This is a humanitarian issue. And so the way we present it is essential. I think that the more we do it, that the more information we give, we will depoliticize the urgency of humanitarian reform. That's the goal. What we aim to do is open the eyes of the world that are shut on what the atrocities going on are. And I am forever grateful to this project for showing us how many ways in which that can be expressed. Thank you, everyone.
A world of no questions, no answers to fear, a life without choice. That's why I'm here. बकन में उड़ना चांदी सी इस पिंजरे में नहीं मरना चांदी सी चिड़िया की बकन में उड़ना चांदी सी इस पिंजरे में नहीं मरना चांदी सी सब कहंदे सब कहंदे 1 2 3 4 सब कहंदे कुड़ी ना तू कर मन मानी खट्टी मीठी बोली है जिंदगानी हाय हाय सड़ जा संग तेरे ही रहना तेरे नाल जिंदगी बितानी हो जानी है जिंदगी बितानी सब कहंदे कुड़ी ना तू कर मन मानी खट्टी मीठी दो पल दी है ये जिंदगानी हाय मैं मर जा हाँ सड़ जा संग तेरे ही है रहना तेरे नाल जिंदगी बितानी हो जानी है जिंदगी बितानी बोलो हडिप्पा वाड़ी बरसी खटन गया सी खट के ले आंदा गां ओ भंगड़ा दा सजदा जे नचे कुड़ी दी मां होय मां होय मां होय मां वाड़ी बरसी खटन गया सी खट के ले आंदा पजामा ओ भंगड़ा दा सजदा जे नचे कुड़ी दी मामा होय मामा